They say marriage is built on trust, but sometimes it's built on silence, on all the things you don't say out loud because saying them might crack the illusion. At first, I didn't notice anything wrong. I mean, we had our usual arguments. Little things like who left the light on, or why I didn't feel like going out after work. Nothing serious, nothing out of the ordinary, just marriage. But over time, she started feeling elsewhere. Not physically. No, she was still there in the kitchen making breakfast, or curled up on the couch binge-watching Netflix. But mentally, emotionally, it was like she was tuned into a different frequency. Still, I told myself it was a phase. Work stress, maybe. I didn't want to push. It all began with a charge, one I didn't recognize. I was paying off the balance on our shared credit card, just part of my usual Saturday routine, when I saw a $78 Uber charge from downtown. Weird. I hadn't been downtown in weeks, and as far as I knew, neither had she. So I asked her about it casually. She didn't even look up from her phone. Oh, that? I grabbed a ride home after drinks with Amanda. You were asleep, remember? I didn't. Remember. And I certainly didn't remember her mentioning drinks, but I nodded anyway. Right, cool. That was the first one. Then came the Sephora charges. 4 of them, all within the same week. Now, I'm not naive, I know makeup isn't cheap, but $600 in 5 days? I brought it up, trying not to sound accusatory. She shrugged. I bought some gifts for my cousin's bridal party, and I needed new stuff for the conference. I wanted to believe her. Hell, I did believe her. Why wouldn't I? But the justifications started to pile up, and they didn't always make sense. A luxury hotel charge, $312, on a Thursday night when she said she had a late meeting and crashed at Amanda's. More rideshare receipts, a spa visit, 2 pairs of designer shoes. And still, her explanation was always ready, smooth, confident. You know how it is, she'd say, smiling. Business stuff, you wouldn't get it. Maybe she was right, maybe I didn't get it. She worked in PR, had clients with deep pockets. I figured this was just part of the game, maintaining appearances, keeping up with the crowd. I didn't want to be the jealous husband. I didn't want to seem controlling or paranoid. I told myself it was fine. But late at night when she was asleep beside me, I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about the little things, like how her phone always faced down, how her passwords had changed, how she suddenly had work, trips that didn't come with hotel receipts or follow-up stories. Once I asked her if she wanted me to join her on one of her conferences. I could use a weekend away, I said. She looked at me like I'd insulted her. You hate networking events, and I'll be too busy the whole time. She wasn't wrong, I did hate networking events. But the way she said it, like I'd crossed a line just by asking, it stuck with me. Then came the moment I couldn't ignore. A package arrived while she was out. Expedited shipping from a boutique I'd never heard of. I opened it thinking it was something for the house, but inside was a necklace. Delicate, gold, not cheap, no note, no receipt, no mention of it later. That night I asked her straight up, "Hey, you get a package today?" She barely blinked. "Oh yeah, just some accessories for a client's photo shoot." I nodded. My stomach turned. Still, I didn't say anything. I didn't confront her, I just started watching. I checked our joint account more frequently. I cross-referenced card statements. I even created a spreadsheet. And with every new charge, every vague answer, every dismissive wave of her hand, something inside me shifted. Not anger, not yet. Just a kind of tightening. A slow, quiet realization that maybe I didn't know my wife at all. And yet, I still wanted to believe her. Isn't that wild? I wanted to believe that she was just bad with money, that she was buying things for work, that maybe I was overreacting, and all of this meant nothing. Because the alternative, that she was lying, hiding, using me, was too hard to swallow. So I stayed silent, but I didn't stop watching. Because deep down, I knew something was coming. And whatever it was, it wouldn't be pretty. At some point, suspicion turns into curiosity. And then curiosity becomes a quiet mission. I told myself I wasn't snooping. I was just being responsible, protecting our finances. I mean, we were married. If something was wrong, shouldn't I know? So I signed up for a credit monitoring service, just to keep an eye on things. What I found didn't just raise a red flag. It sent up a flare. Her name popped up attached to two credit cards I had never seen before. Both opened under my name, both maxed out. One had a $12,000 limit, the other, $18,000. I sat there staring at the screen like I was reading it wrong. But there it was, my name, my social security number, her as the authorized user, and a balance that made my chest tighten. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I opened the full report. She'd taken out a personal loan, $25,000, just a few months earlier. Listed me as the co-signer. I never signed a thing, but the bank approved it. She had all the right answers, all the right forged documentation, I guess. And my credit score dropped over 130 points in less than 6 months. It was like watching the slow collapse of a house from the inside. Quiet, but undeniable. I spent that weekend combing through our bank statements. Late into the night, I didn't sleep. I just pored over every transaction line by line. Luxury clothing stores, wine bars I'd never been to, Airbnb bookings, $400, dinners, nail salons, boutiques. None of it was mine, and most of it didn't add up to anything she'd ever mentioned. That was when the doubt turned into something else. Something colder, sharper. I started checking the home security footage. I'd installed a couple of indoor cameras years ago, mainly because we had a break-in scare once. She always thought it was overkill, but I left them running, silent, forgotten. Scrolled back through the footage. It was like spying on a stranger. One afternoon, while I was still at work, she came home with 3 shopping bags. She stuffed them into the hall closet. The next day, those same bags were gone. A few days later, she brought home what looked like a designer handbag. I never saw her carry it once. It vanished, just like the rest. And that's when I started searching the house, top shelves, closet corners, shoe boxes. In a storage bin in the garage, I found receipts, dozens of them. Some still crisp, some crumpled, all neatly folded in a plastic bag, the kind of hiding place a teenager might use. Not a grown woman. Most were from stores I hadn't heard of, some local, some out of state. One from a jewelry boutique in Chicago, another from a private stylist. The totals made my hands sweat. $2,700 here, $3,200 there, $800 for a silk robe. None of these things were in the house, and yet, I still hadn't said a word to her. I'd come home, kiss her on the cheek, pretend nothing had changed. She'd ask how my day was. I'd tell her it was long. Then she'd disappear into the bedroom with her phone, laughing at something on the screen. Something she never shared with me. And I'd sit at the kitchen table staring at my laptop, staring at my ruined credit report, and wonder, how long had she been planning this? The thing that stung the most wasn't the money. It wasn't the lies. It was the certainty in how she carried herself. She never looked worried, never flinched, never hesitated. She was so comfortable in her deception, it made me feel stupid for even suspecting her. That was when the quiet fury settled in. She thought I'd never look. She thought I was so distracted, so passive, that I wouldn't notice the holes she was digging beneath my feet. And maybe she had good reason to think that, but I was looking now, and I was going to see everything. I waited until a quiet Sunday evening to confront her. The dishes were done. The TV hummed softly in the background. She was curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone, legs tucked under her, acting like everything was normal. I sat beside her and asked in a voice so calm, it surprised even me. "Hey, are you in trouble financially?" She looked up, slowly. "What? No, why would you ask that?" I shrugged. "You've been spending more than usual. I just want to make sure we're okay." She blinked, just once, then tilted her head with a small, rehearsed smile. "I told you. Work's been intense lately. Client dinners, some travel. You know how it goes." "Right," I nodded. "Just didn't want you burning out." She leaned in, kissed me lightly on the cheek, and went right back to her phone. No hesitation. No guilt, just ease. But I already knew she was lying. I'd seen too much, and I needed more than receipts. I needed the full truth. So the next day I did something I never imagined I'd do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Scott, retired cop, sharp, quiet, to the point. I handed him everything, names, dates, copies of statements, even a list of the bags and packages I'd seen her bring home. He didn't react, just nodded and said, "Give me 5 days." He only needed 3. When he called, his voice was clipped and professional. "You might want to sit down." What he gave me wasn't just information, it was a hammer, and it shattered whatever I thought was left of my marriage. She was renting a luxury apartment in another part of the city, not under her name, but paid through one of the credit cards she'd opened under mine. I'd never even seen the place. Never knew it existed. She stayed there twice a week, sometimes 3. She wasn't alone. There were photos, clear ones. Her entering the building arm in arm with a man, tall, well-dressed, a little older than me. Sometimes he picked her up in a black BMW. Other times she met him at restaurants, spas, hotels. She was living an entirely separate life, funded by me. Expensive dinners I never tasted, trips I never took, perfume I never smelled, and all of it paid with my name. I stared at the photos in my car for nearly an hour, not crying, not angry, just numb. It wasn't heartbreak. I think that part had died long ago. It was humiliation. I felt like a fool. Like the guy at the end of a cruel joke who didn't even realize he was the punchline. And yet, in that silence, something solidified inside me. There would be no screaming matches, no dramatic scenes, no slamming doors or shattered plates. That's what she expected. That's what someone like her needed, chaos to distract from the truth. But I wasn't going to give her that. I was going to give her consequences. I saved everything Scott gave me. Every photo, every receipt, every timestamp. Then I started preparing. I contacted a lawyer, quietly, privately, someone who specialized in high-asset divorces and financial fraud. We met 3 times over 2 weeks. I signed documents with shaking hands. Not out of fear, but from restraint. Every part of me wanted to act fast, to burn everything down. But I waited, because the truth is a slow knife, and I wanted her to feel every inch of it. At home, I went through the motions, kissed her goodbye in the mornings, texted her during the day, even brought home flowers one Friday. She smiled when she saw them, said, "You've been so sweet lately." I smiled back. She had no idea. I kept track of every new charge, every new lie, every trip to that apartment she thought I didn't know about. And at night, when she disappeared into that other world, I sat in my car just blocks away, watching the lights in her second-story window flicker on. She thought I was blind. But I was wide awake now, and soon so would she. The hardest part wasn't pretending to love her, it was pretending I didn't already know. Each morning I kissed her on the forehead, handed her coffee like clockwork, and smiled as if my world wasn't rotting beneath the surface. She still lied with ease, told me she had client meetings, dinner appointments, late-night strategy calls. I nodded. Sounds important. She'd grin, grab her designer bag, probably paid for with my credit, and disappear into her secret life. What she didn't know was that while she was playing house in her rented apartment, I was building a case that would tear our real one down. I met with my lawyer twice a week. His office smelled like old books and espresso, and he never once looked surprised as I laid it all out. Photos, spreadsheets, bank statements, audio clips from the PI. "This isn't just infidelity," he said during our 3rd meeting. "This is financial fraud, credit identity misuse. With the paper trail we've got, you'll win this clean." Winning didn't excite me. I didn't want victory. I wanted clarity. I froze our joint bank accounts quietly, transferred every dime of my direct deposits into a new account she didn't know existed. The joint credit cards? Canceled. The auto payments she used to rely on to keep the illusion afloat? Gone, she started to notice. I could see it in the way her eyebrows tightened when she opened her laptop, the way she fidgeted with her phone just a little longer at night. But she didn't ask me. Maybe she thought the charges were failing. Because of a bank glitch. Maybe she was just too arrogant to think I'd ever fight back. Either way, I let her wonder. In private, I prepared. I printed out every email she ever sent me with financial excuses, every time she said client dinner or emergency hotel. I compiled it with timestamps and receipts. My lawyer called it a narrative of deceit. I just called it documentation. At night, I slept on the edge of the bed. She never noticed. She was always turned away, texting someone else, drifting off with a phone full of secrets and a husband she believed was blind. One night, I opened the storage box in my closet, the one where we kept old photos, anniversary, cards, the kind of things people save when they still think forever is real. Buried between a honeymoon brochure and a yellowing Valentine's Day letter was a photo of us from our wedding. She was glowing, eyes full of joy. Back then, I thought I'd won the lottery. I stared at that picture for a long time, thumb tracing the edge of her face like it would trigger some memory I could hold on to. How did we get here? I whispered aloud. And more. Importantly, when did she stop loving me? Or had she ever? I placed the photo back in the box, closed it. Some memories aren't worth carrying anymore. The next morning I made her breakfast, eggs, toast, and orange juice, her favorite. She looked up, amused. What's this for? Just felt like doing something nice, I said. She leaned over, kissed my cheek. You're spoiling me lately. I smiled and walked away. That night, I gave my lawyer the green light. The documents were ready. The subpoena for credit abuse, the fraud report, the preliminary divorce filing, a restraining order request, just in case. And the date was set. 2 Fridays from now. A day she had marked on her calendar as a spa getaway. With friends. She had no idea what kind of day it would actually be. In the meantime, I played the role. The supportive husband. The man too naive to see what was right in front of him. Let her laugh. Let her lie. Every minute she kept digging her hole, the stronger my case became. But inside me, the silence had changed. It wasn't numbness anymore. It was resolve. She thought she could spend me into silence. She thought I'd be too passive, too trusting, too slow. She thought wrong. She thought we were going to a marriage retreat, something she had suggested 2 weeks earlier. Like she suddenly, cared about working things out. I agreed without hesitation, even helped her pack. She had no idea the real destination was a downtown law office and a subpoena with her name on it. We were halfway there when I pulled the car over. What are you doing? She asked, confused, adjusting her sunglasses. I reached into the glove box and handed her the envelope. Her smile faltered. What's this? Open it, I said. She opened it, read the first page, then the second. Her hands started to tremble. These are, she swallowed, blinking fast. Divorce papers? Yes, I said. Calm, clear, effective immediately. Her mouth parted in disbelief. Are you serious? You thought we were going to fix this? I said, leaning slightly toward her. You spent $86,000 of my money on a man named Trent. You forged credit applications, took out loans in my name, rented a second apartment, and you thought I'd never notice? The color drained from her face. I got out of the car, walked around, opened her door. She didn't move. There's a car coming to get you, I said. You're not coming with me. She finally found her voice. You've been spying on me? No, I've been surviving you. I handed her the last folder. Photos, bank statements, screenshots of messages between her and her lover. One of them ended with, he's still clueless. She didn't say a word. She just sat there looking like a woman who'd woken up. In someone else's nightmare. I got back in the car and drove away, but I wasn't done. That afternoon, her family was gathering for her cousin's engagement dinner. Perfect setting, I thought. She'd always liked grand entrances. So I gave her one. I arrived just as she walked in. I stood by the fireplace, folder in hand. "Sorry to interrupt," I said calmly, raising my voice just enough to silence the "oh." "But I figured now was as good a time as any." She froze. Everyone turned toward me. Her father's glass paused mid-sip. "I just wanted you all to know," I said, locking eyes with her, "that she's being served today for fraud, credit abuse, and identity theft." A gasp. "She spent $86,000 of my money on a man named Trent." You could hear a fork drop. She forged my signature, opened accounts under my name, lied for months, rented a second apartment, lived a full secret life while standing in this family, smiling like nothing was wrong. Her mother looked at her like she was seeing her for the first time. I handed her father a sealed envelope. "The documents are in here. You raised a woman who thought no one would ever hold her accountable." I turned to leave. No shouting, no drama, just silence and shame. She chased me out onto the lawn, breathless. "You didn't have to do this here," she hissed. "Actually," I said, turning to face her, "this was the only place I had to do it. You humiliated me in private for months. I just returned the favor, with interest." She opened her mouth to speak, but I was already walking away. The court process didn't take long. The evidence was airtight. My lawyer didn't even have to raise his voice. We proved she'd committed financial fraud, identity theft, and marital misconduct. She tried to claim I was emotionally neglectful, played the victim. But every lie she spun unraveled under cross-examination. The judge awarded me full compensation. I got the house, the retirement accounts, even the car she'd been driving, in my name. I took that back too. She was left with her own name and a mountain of debt. As for Trent, he disappeared the moment the money dried up. Turns out he wasn't her soulmate, just another leech who smelled opportunity. Once she couldn't cover the dinners and hotel suites, he stopped replying to her messages. One day, she texted him from the courthouse steps. I saw it because she forgot to log out of her cloud account. He replied with a single line, "You were fun while it lasted." Poetic, really. A week after the final hearing, her parents invited me to lunch. I almost didn't go, but something in me needed to hear it. They sat across from me, eyes downcast. "I don't know what to say," her mother whispered. "We thought we raised her better." Her father looked me in the eye. "You didn't deserve any of that." "No," I said. "But thank you for saying it." They offered to pay part of the restitution. I declined. "I'm not here for the money," I told them. "I just wanted to walk away knowing I wasn't crazy." The night I moved back into the house, it was quiet, peaceful. I walked into the bedroom and took down the wedding photo from the wall. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I just exhaled, slowly, fully, like I'd been holding my breath for years. And for the first time in a long time, I slept. Really slept. It's been 8 months. 8 long, necessary, brutal, healing months. I don't live in the city anymore. I sold the house not long after the divorce was finalized. I didn't want to stay in a space where every corner whispered her name, where every crack in the drywall reminded me of a conversation that had meant nothing to her. I bought a smaller place upstate. Quiet, wooded, simple. Not flashy, not expensive. But it's mine. Every nail, every floorboard. Paid for with clean money and earned peace. The day I moved in, I brought only what I needed: clothes, a few books, my guitar, and one box filled with legal documents and old photos I hadn't been ready to throw away just yet. That box sat in my closet for months, untouched, like a sealed memory waiting for the right time to disappear. I focused on fixing my credit first. That part was mechanical, tangible. I could log in, see the numbers, watch them crawl upward like tiny markers of progress. I paid off the cards she maxed out, negotiated with banks, sent letters, filed disputes, showed proof. It was slow work, but every point gained felt like a victory. The day my score crossed 750 again, I smiled for the first time in weeks. Not a big smile, just enough to feel like the storm was truly behind me. The final loan, the one she forged in my name, was repaid in full last month. When the bank confirmed the zero balance, I walked to the kitchen drawer, pulled out the last credit card tied to that account, and cut it in half. Then in half again. Then into tiny pieces, like it had wronged me personally. Because, in some ways, it had. I held the pile of plastic in my hand, looked at it for a moment, then dropped it in the trash and never looked back. Funny thing is, I never imagined I'd come out of this better. But I did. I've been working with a non-profit now. Nothing big, just a small organization that helps people understand financial literacy, especially men going through divorces, breakups, or financial betrayal. I tell them what to look for, what to protect, how to start over even when you feel like you've been ground into dust. One of the guys I helped last month said, "You talk like someone who's been through hell." I smiled and said, "Yeah. But I built a house there and walked out. I don't talk about her by name, I don't need to. She's just a chapter I finished reading. A lesson, nothing more. The peace I have now is quiet, not flashy. It's in the sound of birds outside my window in the morning, in the absence of lies, in the freedom of walking into my kitchen and knowing no one is secretly draining my accounts behind my back. I've taken up hiking. Nothing extreme, just weekend trails. There's something cleansing about being surrounded by trees, dirt, and sky. Nature doesn't lie to you. One morning, on a trail overlooking the lake, I brought the box, the one with the old wedding photos, the cards, the things I couldn't throw away until I was truly ready. I sat on a stone ledge, cool wind brushing against my face, and opened it. There was our wedding album, still wrapped in the satin ribbon the photographer tied around it all. Those years ago, I looked at it, took a deep breath, then I tossed it into the water. It landed with a soft splash, floated for a moment, then slowly began to sink, dragged down by the weight of what it held. No tears, no dramatic monologue, just silence, closure. That night back home, I sat on the porch with a beer in hand and a blanket over my lap, looked up at the stars and finally understood what peace really was. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of clarity. I wasn't the same man I'd been a year ago. Back then I was trusting, quiet, maybe a little too comfortable in the life I thought I'd built. Now I'm sharper, calmer, more deliberate. I've learned how to protect what matters, how to walk away from what doesn't, and how to rebuild brick by brick without bitterness weighing down every breath. I don't hate her anymore. In fact, I hope she finds whatever she was chasing. But I'll never forget what she took from me. She stole my trust, but I reclaimed my peace, and in the end, that's worth far more.